we might have just seen the greatest prospect in Australian MMA history at Hex 34. And it's not who you think.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your main event.
Live from HBF Stadium Festival Hall. Melbourne Pavilion.
Not even backstage, we're literally outside.
Was that the best fight card in Australian MMA history?
Call me crazy, but make sure you call me when I'm right.
Be good if the Aussie MMA Instagram page would give us a bit of glow up because
welcome to the Australian MMA podcast. And look, strap on in, guys, because we're just going to review and I'm going to give you my reactions to Hex 34, which was on March 1st, Melbourne Pavilion in Melbourne. Before we get started, of course, stick around right at the end. We'll hear from our friends at Vex. Remember, if you want to pick up an Australian MMA t-shirt, head to ma1combat.com.au, search Oz MMA. And of course, if you've got a gym or events or anything else that you want looked after in insurance, or you got questions, hit up Combat Sports Insurance and they'll get it sorted for you today. Now, guys, we're going to run it through the card, but of course, we're going to chat about the superstar of Australian MMA, the man that everybody wants and everyone is talking about, none other than George Mangos. Without a doubt, with that victory alone, and even without it, he probably could have sat. Look, his next fight will not be in Australia. So if you missed it, that is the last time you'll ever see him fight on the regional scene in Australia. He, without a doubt, his next fight will be in the UFC. I wouldn't be surprised if he got signed outright. But if I had to wager a bet, I mean, he is signed with the great Dan Maudsley and Tim Simpson, which everything they touch turns to gold. Basically, if they talk to you, you're probably going to the UFC. And look, they'll get a lot done. I think, in my humble opinion, before we kind of break down all the fights of the card, I think George Mangos will be in the Contender Series, but I think he'll be like the main event of one of the weeks. I think so. He'll get kind of like a feature spot. I do think he'll still go through the Contender Series. I just think that's how they make stars these days. And George Mangos is the type of guy that you get him on there, say he gets another minute victory type thing, 100% finish rate. Everyone gets behind him. Everyone pushes him. It's just better than going like the Stewie Nickel route or even the Colby Thickness route of just getting signed outright. Unless you have like a great story, like a Colby Thickness, where he was like coming off the back of Volk and all that sort of stuff. It's very hard, like if you're Stewie Nickel, who was a sort of flyweight prospect for quite some time, it's hard to sort of build any story. And I feel like if you have half a brain, you're going to want to turn George Mangos into an absolute star. And the Contender Series is the way to go. And if he's the main event, he's going to get a lot more sort of hype and pop going in. So if I had to use my very uneducated opinion, I do think that. Now, there were some absolute standouts on the card. I'll quickly run through the results. George Mangos took out Ethan Thomas, 34 seconds TKO. Ricky Beechin split decision over Ken Viliamu. Kieran Joblin took out Justin Van Heerden by decision. Maran Riki took out the ever so tough and ever so game Michael Barber TKO 3 minutes into round one. Nico Trepka, good to see him sort of back and in the win column. He took out a very tough, very durable Raph Scott by decision. Semakati and Kambo proved what everyone was saying going in. He beat Josh Trambulo round one, I think it was. Yep, submission. That's exactly how we thought that was going to go. It's no knock on Josh. It's just how good Sam is. He really is the upper echelon. We'll talk about what I think is next for him very, very soon. And it's going to be good. And, of course, Jet Fisher, Dane Edge. Jet Fisher off to a kind of rough start to his pro career, but it's plenty of ups, and we'll talk about that. But the first fight of the night, there was a few fights cancelled actually. Lisa Kiriaki versus Amina Hadaya was going to be pretty good. Amina got injured. I think it was a week, 2 weeks heading into the bout. Jake Hurl and Troy Fumo. I think Fumo got hurt. I'm not too sure. But look, that was going to be a fun fight as well at flyweight, I believe. The fight that was very, very interesting that didn't take place. Now, this was called essentially, I think, at the weigh-ins, day before the weigh-ins. Was Adamus Trepka. Now, if you're looking for sort of the next sort of star as a pro, Adamus Trepka is absolute stud, hell of a wrestler, dominant sort of lightweight, can fight at welterweight, but is a lightweight. He's going to absolutely burst onto the scene in 2025, so keep an eye on him. But he was fighting an international guy. Don't get me wrong, a guy he should not have been fighting. The guy's well beneath him. I don't know how these fights sort of come about, and I don't think they should be happening because I think, it's easy to say just throw Trepka straight into the deep end, but I don't like him fighting random international dudes that are of no value, but, just get him kind of active. I mean, I guess it's the same with Colby Thickness when he was doing that with the Canggu fight nights. I get the whole, keeps him active, but I think from, a fan perspective and people from the outside, it doesn't do too much for your, stock. So, I don't know. It's would you rather him sit for 9 months or get a fight? I don't know. People are split on it. But this fight fell out because the guy from, I think, the Philippines did his blood work. And this is shout out to Hex, Victoria, the Commission of WA, the Commission of Victoria, whatever they do, the doctors of Victoria, whoever was in charge of this, but big props to them. They do their bloods when they do their medicals. All fighters do their bloods. And they do them overseas. They send a photo of them doing them and everything. And then when they land in Australia, which is the very smart thing to do, they get them to do their bloods again. And like I said, I don't know whose idea it is. I don't know if it's Hex. I don't know if it's the medical team. I don't know if it's the government, whatever it is. But very, very smart they did, because Trepka's fight fell out because the guy's blood test came back. He had Hep C. That's right. So and Trepka would have bet my left nut that Trepka would have cut him open. And Trepka would have won the fight, but old mate would have won the war because Trepka probably would have had AIDS. So, gotta be real careful. Shout out to everyone involved in the medical situation. I feel like Trepka is now only going to fight legitimate Australian local guys because, fuck that. But yeah, he nearly got AIDS. So that's crazy. Anyway, sad news. Trepka will be back. Talk to him. He wants nothing but absolute gangsters from now on. And he even mentioned he'd like to fight Hayweb. Not now. He's not calling him out, but that's his dream fight. So I think Trepka's sort of done with the international guys, and hopefully, if they are international, they're going to be super, super high level. But look, it's going to be very interesting to see what is next. But very sad for Trepka that he didn't get his fight. But very, very good news because, of course, AIDS. Hep C is AIDS, right? I don't know. I'm sure someone will correct me. Look, guys, moving up the card. Jet Fisher versus Dane Edge. Dane Edge, very, very tough. Just tough, gritty guy. Jet Fisher just still not... I mean, it was 9-3 as an amateur. Jet Fisher was an absolute stud. He had a hell of a sort of weight cut his first fight when he lost to Oscar Marlowe last Hex event. And he was basically nearly dying. Not taking anything away from Marlowe, but just so everyone is aware. Jet Fisher basically nearly died in the weight cut, but sort of kept that under wraps. That's probably why he looked so un-Jet Fisher-like. But he battled his way back to at least make it to the fight, and unfortunately went down. He then takes on Dana Edge. I'd say now, Jet Fisher won that fight, but he's way better than that. So if you're a Jet Fisher in his camp, you're probably not stoked with that. And that's not me. I'm not critiquing him. He'd beat the absolute piss out of me. But love the Fishers. Gave his brother, even Cage Fisher, the amateur fighter of the year. He's actually fighting Max Davidson at Eternal MMA 94. That's going to be an absolute banger of a fight. So check that out as well. But yeah, Jet's way better than this. So if you watch that fight, hopefully, I don't know, he's got the jitters out. He got the first sort of pro victory. And I reckon we only see him get better from here. But some people are already writing him off, saying he's, not as good a pro as he was an amateur. But I just think he's just had two sort of really, really tough times. He's still finding his feet, and he's still like a child. I think he's 20? Might even be younger than that. He's young. So he's got nothing but time. Moving up the card, Semka Kambo taking out Josh Trambulo. Just dominant. I think he had the body triangle, worked in the choke. And yeah, Josh is tough as shit, but I mean, what's he, 4-8? He'll fight anyone. Props to Josh. for doing that and taking on a guy that, you know, he's now 7-3, Semka Kambo. Without a doubt, I would say with Jarrett Wilbraham, I think he's like injured in his Diego Pereira fight for the beatdown featherweight title. That fight's not going ahead. And Jarrett beat Sem by split. So technically Jarrett would be in front. But I think Semka Kambo is the number one contender for the Hex featherweight crown. And I think we can see him versus another man that I'll talk about soon. But when George Mangos moves on, because George Mangos ain't ever fighting again on Australian soil that isn't with the UFC. So that title will be vacated soon. And I think Semka Kambo takes on like a Maran Riki, which I'll bring back up very, very soon. Next fight, Nikos Trepka putting it together and nice little grappling display and dominant control. Beautiful leg kicks as well against Raph Scott. Raph Scott is about as game as they come. He's 38, looks 28, moves like he's 18. He's an absolute freak, Raph Scott. His little sort of comeback fight against Jack Lyons was a thing of beauty not too long ago, and then obviously went down to Justin Van Heerden. So he'll fight absolutely everyone. 5-5 record doesn't do him justice. Took a couple of years off during COVID and coaching and whatnot. Raph Scott's just always a fun fighter. He'll be on Hex cards to come for many, many years. Nikos Trepka moving up. His brother obviously gets all the highlights. Adamus of being just an absolute stud of a sort of prospect, but Nikos just as tough as they come. So this fight was just between two really, really tough guys. And I think Trepka and Scott did as advertised. But yeah, Trepka picking up the decision victory. They wouldn't fight each other, but like that sort of like Trepka versus Barber fight. That's the type of fight I want. I know they won't fight each other because I think they're mates, but that sort of, you know, gritty versus gritty sort of fight is the ones I see in the future for Mr. Trepka. Shout out to, I feel like Hex caught a lot of shit for this, but Combat Sports Network, they had like a global server outage. I actually put it up on Australian MMA _ where the stream basically, if I go back, to the first fight with Jet Fisher, he caught a nasty eye poke, which definitely would have affected his performance. It was very, very deep, and it looked like the doctor might even stop it. And you know them Melbourne doctors, they're hella shit. They nearly stopped that Jet Fisher fight as well, but fortunately they let it go. But yeah, from about that eye poke all the way up, I think it was until the end of the Trepka Scott fight. It actually might have been beyond to the Riki fight. But yeah, the stream cut out, and basically like no one could watch it. So that was a bit of an issue there. But CSN, Combat Sports Network, did a very good job of trying to compensate everyone, and everyone, as you can imagine, was very pumped up not getting to watch this card, because it was a fun card with some good fights that sort of have some nice ramifications on the Australian MMA scene. But yeah, look, this was a real interesting fight. It's probably my most interesting fight heading in was Maran Riki taking on Michael Barber. Now, Riki is without a doubt, I don't care what you say, I don't care if you don't think I'm qualified. You can go fuck yourself. Marwan Freaky Riki, the Moroccan rockin', sockin', just beats the shit out of people. Marwan Riki is the best striker since Israel Adesanya on the regional scene. And go and message me and send your abuse and send. Look, there might be guys with better boxing. There might be guys with, I don't know, harder knockouts. You cannot find me a man that is more fluid than today's kids. It is just ridiculous. Marwan Riki is the silkiest striker since Cristiano Ronaldo. There you go. How you like that? Look, what he throws a spinning wheel kick on a dime. The way that he got those hooks around Michael Barber. Now, Michael Barber has been stopped before, and like I said, heading into this fight, he would either get stopped early or it'd be so gritty. And it was going to be Marwan Rahiki's toughest test. And, mate, he was a year 12 taking a NAPLAN year 5 test. That's all I've got. Sorry, guys. Marwan was just like, he just blitzed through it. He made Michael Barber look not on his level. And Michael Barber is in the best shape of his life. He's in the best condition of his life. He just knocked out Abdullah Biata. And Marwan has just quickly come out of nowhere. I've sort of explained to him as being like the Scottie Pippen to George Mangos's Michael Jordan. And before everyone gets mad at that, his coach called him Michael Jordan. I just commented off the back of it, okay? But looking back, who knows? George Mangos could be. But I say the Scottie Pippen to his Michael Jordan because Maran Riki doesn't get anywhere near as much sort of hype. But I'll tell you what now, he is going to slot in there perfectly when George Mangos leaves. I would bet my left nut that when that title is vacated, and it is just, if you're a Lions Den Academy guy, if you're Luke Pizzuti and that team, you would be bloody stoked at this situation. You get to move one guy out into the UFC, and then the guy that might have been a little bit tricky if George hung around for a couple of years, it's like tricky. What do you do with Marwan and him? And who knows? But it's like George moves on, and then you like the title won't even leave your gym. You know what I mean? In that perfect scenario, it's just right there. Yeah, I think Riki is special. I'm really interested with him and Sem Kambo because Kambo can strike, and he would be without a doubt his best grappling test by far. I love Michael Manu, but I think maybe Sem probably has that little bit better striking, and he can mix the grappling in a little bit better, so it's like a little bit more of like a threat. Once again, I apologize, Mr. Manu. But yeah, I think Sem is going to pose some real sort of tricky questions for Marwan Riki. But I'll say it, and I'll say it again. I think Marwan Riki is the best striker on the regional scene since Israel Adesanya. And send your abuse. That was just in case you forgot. Now, look, shout out to Michael Barber, though. He'll be back. He's absolute gangster. Let's get Michael Barber and Raph Scott just fight to the death. That would be cool. I don't know. I'm just thinking here. I know one's a lightweight and one's like fought at bantam, but like, it'll just be a fun fight. We move on to the title fights. Kieran Joblin getting the flowers he deserves. Kieran the Stonecutter Joblin taking out Justin Van Heerden for the Hex Lightweight Championship. Good, nice little cherry on top of Joblin's career. I think he's 27-15. He has not been praised the way he should. Kind of every time he goes on a bit of a run, falls a little bit short. And I don't think people realise, like, he's a lot of guys look up to Kieran Joblin, and it was great to talk to him as well. Big round of applause for Joblin. He's just an absolute stud, and I'm glad that he kind of gets a bit of light. Justin Van Heerden, yeah, I don't know. It's unfortunate. He was looking good. He had some moments. Definitely could have taken it. Definitely could have gone his way as well. That's really sad. But I think that might be a wrap for Mr. Van Heerden in terms of the UFC. I think he could still get a shot on like the PFL and all that sort of jazz. But it might be a wrap for him in terms of UFC dreams, unfortunately, because he is one of my favourite guys. He's a hell of a grappler. He does have knockout power. He knocked out Rod Costa, and he just talks an immense amount of shit. What I think he should do, and he's still young, so he can still fight. Like, he'll still bounce back, don't get me wrong, and probably fight for titles and stuff. And he's going to be one of those guys, and we're building up the Australian MMA scene. And it's great when guys move on to the UFC. But what's even better is the Van Heerden's, sort of David Martinez, the guys that help build the regional scene. And I feel like Justin is going to be one of those guys that will really put the scene on his back. I do think the door is probably closed on the UFC, unfortunately. But hey, I'd like for him to prove me wrong. But look, I don't think this is the last title fight we see Van Heerden in Australian MMA. But yeah, I think the next level is no more. Do check out his podcast. So he's fucking just talks mad shit. It's great. It's awesome. He's very unfiltered. Yeah, shout out to Kieran Joblin as well. 2 more fights to go. Hex Fight Series 34. This fight, the Hex Interim Heavyweight Championship, which is basically just who gets to fight to the death against Randall Raymond. Ricky Beechin taking out Ken Villiamu by split decision. Love me some Ricky Beechin. I do. Great guy. Just stud. Sometimes kind of you don't know what Ricky you're going to get. And he's got the talent to beat anyone in the world. You know, he once won the Eternal MMA Heavyweight Grand Prix. Like, that's how good Ricky Beechin is. I think that Ken Viliamu, if he won, it would have been like more intriguing for him to go up against Randall Raymond, because that's very, very exciting because they haven't fought each other yet. But I also like Ricky Beechin getting an opportunity to take out Randall, because if you take out Randall, he's right. I mean, he's a heavyweight. You know, the UFC is always looking. He's right there. He's still quite young. He might be, if he's 30, he's just on 30. But yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know if Randall fights again anytime soon. He's 31, Ricky. But what I actually think might happen is, I wouldn't be surprised, and hear me out here. I got a feeling that little rumor going around that BKFC, Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, is returning to Perth. Not returning. Is coming to Australia and is heading to Perth. And they're looking at signing a lot of local talent as well. And you cannot tell me that the founder of bloody Bare Knuckle Australia is not going to be... And he's the Hex heavyweight champion, and he talks a gang of shit. He's probably the funniest man that's ever lived. He's a man that was quoted as hanging out at the gay bars before he took on one of the scariest prospects in the history of Oceania heavyweights, Brandon Pericic, and then beat him. So Randall Raymond, I think, will get signed to... This is my Mitchell Tinley's big call. I think he will get signed to BKFC. So I actually don't think we see him fight at Hex. I actually think that Ricky becomes the undisputed champion. But yeah, I don't really know what's next for him. Ricky, I guess if Ricky... Like, is there a rematch with Brando Pericic? Speaking of him, that's probably intriguing. I don't even know if Randall's right with injuries with his eye and all that sort of stuff, but he's kind of gone MIA. I tried to talk to his coach, Suman Mukhtaran, but couldn't get a hold of him either. So, yeah, who knows? Look, shout out to Ricky. It's a tough fight. It could have gone either way at times, but, yeah, congrats to Ricky, and I guess he's in line now to take on Randall Raymond. Finally, Jesus Christ, George Mangos taking out Ethan Thomas 34 seconds into round number 1 by TKO. Just solidifying the hype. I mean, when you've got the likes of Chosen Advisory, Tim Simpson, Daniel Maudsley, probably the greatest talent scouts in the history of the country right now, especially in regional MMA. Everyone they touch becomes a star. Not just in the UFC, they become like a star. And so you can't just be good and get signed. Like you have to kind of find a way to earn everyone millions. So they believe in more than just you. George is a superstar. George Mangos is ripe, and everyone wants a bite. I don't know. That's kind of gay. But look, George Mangos, I think, honestly, he's lived up to his hype. He's 7-0, 7 first-round finishes. Sorry, 7 finishes. The only time he went to the third round was against Justin Van Heerden. He took no damage, and then he won by flying triangle. Like I said, I think he gets signed to Dana White Contender Series. And I think he fights in like a main event spot of the Contender Series. That's how much of a star I think he is. Ethan Thomas, for those who don't know, he was like captain of the Australian national team. I think he just missed out in the Olympics or Commonwealth Games, something like that. Very, very high up in wrestling, so a hell of a grappler. He's the Oceania champion for ADCC, and he got to go to the ADCC, the Worlds. Yeah, look, it wasn't grappling, and George did what he had to do and took him out on the feet. But he defended the takedown as well. So, you know, Ethan could have got him down, type thing, and George kept his standard, and George's sort of MO is grappling as well. So the fact that he kind of put Ethan to sleep is just great. Like, yeah, George is a superstar. Absolutely, it's a hell of a guy. Won the $5,000 knockout of the night bonus. Like, honestly, man, the world is his oyster. He's 21. Like, his head coach Luke Pizzuti said he's like the Michael Jordan of Australian MMA. Whether you believe it or not, we'll look back and we'll know if that's a really great call or a really, really shit one. You can compare him with Seb Saleh, who of course is the featherweight champion of Eternal, if you want. I think they're both running separate races, if I'm being honest. Like I said, I think George moves on to the next level. I think Seb does too, but I don't think, they interact at all. George moves on to UFC. That title gets vacated. Maran Riki versus Sam Kambo for the Hex Featherweight Championship. That's my bet. Anyway, guys, we've been talking for nearly half an hour. Hope you guys enjoyed staring at my face or listening to my voice. If you want to send abusive messages, do head to Australian MMA _ on Instagram, or subscribe on YouTube, or hit it up on the podcast app on Spotify. Other than that, guys, I'll see you next time. Of course, let me know what you think. And if you want me to do anything more, previews, reviews, let me know. Stay safe.